I'd like to introduce Mr. David Chalker. I know, weird, right? It's a little weird to be running the meeting and being the presenter. Are you going to introduce yourself? Anyway, I'm glad you're all here tonight. I hope you get something out of this. I just put this together. I've been thinking about it for a while, but I just put it together. So y'all are kind of my guinea pigs. We'll see how this goes. Hopefully it'll be beneficial to you. Like I said, I want you to ask questions during the presentation because we'll all be on the same page, right? So if we're talking about accounting, you have an accounting question, that's the time to ask me. I don't mind at all. Hopefully it'll be informational and helpful. We'll see. But yeah, you're my guinea pig, so there you go. A little bit of background that you might not know. I do have a bachelor's in business administration, so I am somewhat qualified to talk about this. Even before that, I was doing entrepreneurial things as a photographer, and I was part of a furniture company for a while. Me and a friend of mine started a furniture company, which is interesting.
Did you build the furniture?
No,
Oh.
we actually had people that built it for us,
Oh.
but we just ran the business and marketed and
Okay.
worked with the showrooms and stuff. So I've been doing kind of business stuff for a long time. I still don't feel like I'm any kind of expert. I'm not a lawyer, okay? I'm not an accountant. In fact, accounting is my worst thing. I hate accounting. I don't even really want to understand accounting. I understand enough about it to be dangerous and get by. But that's why I hire a CPA to keep me out of trouble, right? But I've been doing some kind of entrepreneurship thing for a long time, so I do have some experience. And that's really what I'm going to share with you tonight is my experience in doing those things and kind of what works and what doesn't work. And again, I'm not up here telling you I'm a guru. I'm just going to tell you what I've done and how I've done it. And you may have a better way or a different way, and that's all good, right? We'll see. All right. So with that, let's get started. So tonight we're going to talk about am I a business or a hobbyist? Am I a business or a hobbyist? This is the first question you have to decide for yourself. Now, if you decide you're a hobbyist, you can become a business. If you are a business, you can decide to become a hobbyist. But I'm going to try to help you understand what the difference is, okay, so that you can make an informed decision about which one you either are or want to be. Business entity types, only a couple of them might even come close to applying to you. But you need to know what they all are. Registering your business. If you are going to be a business, how do you do that? How do you become a business? Do you just start selling stuff, or is there some kind of process? We're going to talk about that. Sales tax. Well, if you're going to be a business, you got to pay sales tax. You got to collect it and pay it. Collect it and pay it. Yeah, I know, right? It's annoying. It's really annoying. But we have to do it because that's how things are set up. And then accounting, I've got some tips and tricks for you there. Hopefully, the important thing is that you do it, right? That's the important part, is that you do some accounting. And then selling your work. I don't know that I have anything revelatory for you on that, but we're going to talk about it, and I'll share my experience with you and what that has looked like. All right, business or hobby. So there's 7 points here we're going to go through. So first of all, profit motive. If you're a business, you intend to make a profit and you take steps to do so. You're marketing, you're pricing, you're selling consistently. You're actually trying to make money. You're not just selling it for cost. You're not selling it for what you think it might be worth. You have some kind of basis for pricing your art to where you know or have some guarantee that you're going to make a profit based on your effort and time and materials. The hobby, well, you create it mainly for enjoyment without any real consistent effort to make money. You just do it for fun. Every now and then you do a show, or every now and then you put something in a gallery, or you participate in one of our events, right? That can be more of a hobbyist type of approach. Record keeping, if you're going to be a business, you need to maintain accurate books, track expenses, and manage income like a business. You can't just kind of go willy-nilly about it, right? You can't just do everything in cash and not write anything down, because then you're a hobbyist. If you're a hobbyist, if you don't consistently track your expenses or income. Okay? Any questions so far? Yes, ma'am.
Like for me, it's a hobby, but I'm assuming like right now electronically everything is traceable. And if let's say I sell few items for Instagram, like they make you file a form and like pay taxes like
Yeah.
out of your sale. Then for that reason, probably even if you're a hobby, you want to kind of keep track of your expenses so
Yeah.
you can write it off, right?
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking.
And the reason they do that is because they don't want to get in trouble,
Mhm.
right? Because they keep records of that, and if they get audited by the IRS and they see that you're selling stuff and they're not, doing what they're supposed to do, then they get in trouble, right? So that's more about them than you. But yeah, we'll get into that more too.
Okay.
All right. Time and effort. If it's a business, you spend significant time developing and promoting your art like a job. I mean, you're doing it on a daily, bless you, on a daily or weekly basis. If it's a hobby, you just work on it occasionally as a pastime, just whenever you feel like it. Right? Dependence on income. If you rely on the income, or at least treat it as a meaningful part of your financial plan, it's a business, right? Or it needs to be a business, right? It's a hobby if you don't depend on the income, and it's more like extra cash just whenever it happens. Okay. Business practices. You have a website, business cards, contracts, possibly a business license or LLC, right? You got all that official stuff, right? Then you know your business. Hobby, you may sell occasionally, but you don't operate with the professional tools or branding. You don't have a special Instagram page or Facebook page. You don't have a website. You don't have a EIN number or anything like that, right? For a sales tax certificate, right? History of profit. You show profits in at least 3 of the last 5 years. That's the IRS standard. So if you go like 4 or 5 years without making a profit at all, you're tracking your expenses and your sales and everything, and you don't make a profit, you're a hobby, whether you think you're a business or not. Okay. And sometimes it feels like you're a hobby, even when you're trying to be a business. But that's how the IRS looks at it. Okay.
I wonder if that would be open to interpretation though, 3 of the last 5 years. Because when you start up a business, I mean, you're not going to be profitable usually in the first few years. And 3 is a pretty short time, especially if you've got to invest in any equipment or, you know what I mean? So I just wonder if that 3 to 5 years is a really hard line.
Well, I would say that if you've gone 5 years and none of those 5 years you made a profit, then you're a hobby. If you made a profit at least one of those years, then you're good. You can call yourself a business.
Yeah, because this is my 5th year and in 2024, and my net profit was $75.
Yeah.
And prior to that, they'd all been losses, got a net loss.
You made
loss
it.
carried forward, which is yay.
You made it.
Perfect, yeah. But I just wonder if that's really so hard line.
I don't think it is. I think it's more of a guideline.
Yeah, like we make less loss, less loss.
Well, and what it's really about is, can you write off your expenses?
Yeah.
Right? That's what it gets down to.
Right.
Because that's what they care about, right? They want to get their cut.
Right.
Yeah. So if you're a business but you're having a loss every year for forever, well, what's going on there?
Yeah.
Right? How are you even thinking you're a business?
Right.
Right? Because you're not making any money.
Right. You know, my son is just starting to do a little business. And I told him, it's so funny to put business cards on there. Because I said, okay, here's what you need to do. And get some business cards. What do I need those for? He's got like one client, right? What do I need those for? I said, to show intent. Intent.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
just to show intent.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you need a website, you can go by word of mouth, but a business card is cheap,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, you
So
can
that's funny you have that on there, because he thought I was nuts.
You can get a set of business cards for what, $50, $25?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can, but it's cheap.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna get the whole thing and send it to them.
Yeah, no problem.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, up there you say hobby, you may sell occasionally, but you don't operate with professional tools or branding. So, how do people sell their artwork, and how do you know what to price it at? Or is that coming later?
That's more later.
Okay,
And if I don't answer your question, ask it again.
okay.
Okay, thank you. All right. Yeah, it's a hobby if you consistently operate at a loss or break even. I mean, and if you really think about it, it makes sense, because the business is a business to make money, and if you're not making money, then it's not really a business. I've felt that way some days. Adaptability. Business, you adjust your methods to improve profitability. In other words, you're analyzing your sales. You're looking at what works, what doesn't work. How can we improve? How can we make the product better? How can we increase our margins?
Yeah.
You know, those kind
Lower
of things.
expenses.
Yeah, you're thinking through all that stuff. In a hobby, you stick with what you enjoy regardless of income. You don't really care. You do it because you love it, and you sell it at this price because that's what you think is fair, and it doesn't really matter whether or not you're covering your expenses or not. Okay. So those are the 7 things. Why it matters. If your art is a business, you can deduct business-related expenses on your taxes. If it's a hobby, deductions are limited, and you can't claim a loss. In other words, you can't technically claim a loss on your taxes. And you know, there's all kinds of rules about, like, I'm not an accountant, but there's all kinds of things about carried over, you know, losses and stuff like that that you can get into. Yeah, Terry.
So I did that last year, and I did it this year, but our accountant said I couldn't do it this year, wasn't enough money, and I kept records of selling and my expenses and all that stuff. You couldn't take off the room and ask for it.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, well.
Yeah, same thing, my accountant laughed at me because I got so anxious, you know, do I have to declare all this? And he said, how much are you making? And he said, never mind.
okay. If you're selling 1 penny a year, yeah, don't worry about it. Just
Yeah,
take
and it was
cash.
$20.
Or Venmo, or I don't know, you know. And even with Venmo, if it's less than $600, nobody's ever going to look at it,
Right.
for the transaction.
And
So,
sometimes if the person puts on it, that they bought it, if it was a sale or business or whatever, then you have to pay extra money, or they take tax money on or something.
Oh, because it's a business rather than person to
Right.
person.
Right.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
If you don't want to have to worry about
Yeah.
it, make sure you put person.
Well, I never tell them it's a business.
No,
Even
I-
if that,
it's-
even if
yeah.
it is.
I didn't tell them either, but one time the person that sent me the money put that in.
Yeah, I don't think that's a necessary compliance issue personally. Yeah, cash is king though. Cash is good, right? All right, if you want to treat your art as a business, it helps to set up a separate bank account. That's the most important thing I can tell you tonight. If you want to have your art business be a business, set up a separate account. It costs pretty much nothing. You have to put some money in it. You might want to pay to get some checks. I don't know. I bought some checks and I've never used them because I just don't, nobody wants them anymore. But it's probably the most important thing you can do if you're going to think you're going to be a business, is set up, just to keep the expenses separate. Because when you commingle funds, you wind up, it becomes really hard to understand, am I making money, am I not making money, you know? And you got to save, I mean, you need to save your receipts and write what it's for on there anyway, but, you know, if it's all coming out of the same account, you've got no way, I mean, if you lose that receipt, or you didn't write it down correctly, you have no idea how to figure it out, right? So set up a separate bank account. Develop a business plan. I've never really been that big on business plans, but it's a good idea, right? Even the business
The
school.
bankers will want it if you're dealing with banks, right? The bank.
Yeah, I mean,
the bank will
if you want to get a loan for your business, you need a business plan. But I would say none of y'all probably need a business plan, right? I mean, you're just going to do your thing, and it's okay. Register your business legally as a DBA, which is doing business as, or an LLC. Those are really the 2 types of businesses that, business entities that you would be interested in doing. And you can just be like David Chalker Photography. If you're using your name, and then artist or photographer or painter or illustrator, then that's fine. That's not really a problem. That's just a DBA. Now, you do need to register it. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But you want to have some kind of official paperwork because you need that to get a sales tax permit, which we'll talk to you about in a minute.
Just to clarify, David, a DBA would be a sole proprietorship.
Yes, yes,
They're interchangeable terms.
yes, yes. But you can have an LLC and then have DBAs under the LLC. Yeah.
The difference,
What?
what's the difference?
We'll get into that. Okay, and you market your work and you seek consistent sales. So again, you're actively trying to make money.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
know.
Any
that-
questions about all that stuff?
Yeah, that I was trying to enroll like in a certain art fairs, and some of them actually require the taxpayer number.
Yes.
And when I say that, I'm like, oh, never mind.
Yeah. It's a pretty common requirement and becoming more common, I think. Yeah. All right. Types of business entities. This will probably put you to sleep. So here we go. All right. First of all, why it matters. If your art is a business, you can deduct. I already did this. I'll go backwards. There we go. Sole proprietorship. That's going to be most of you, if not all of you. All right. It's the simplest type of business entity to have. It's the easiest one to do. It could just be you as an individual, nobody else. Downside, liability. There's unlimited personal liability for debts and legal issues. You know, if you're, that's why we try to get insurance, right? If you're doing a lot of public things, you want to have some insurance in case somebody trips over your tent stake and breaks their arm and they want to sue you, things like that, right? So it's good to have insurance. We're not really getting into that today. But that's one of the downsides of just being a sole proprietor. As a business entity, there's no separation between you and the business because you are the business, right?
Right, which they could come after you, your house, your belongings, your bank account.
Well,
there's no veil there.
Yeah, they'll try. I don't think they can take your house, your primary residence, but anyway.
But, there's no veil.
Yeah, there's no, you're open, right? You're vulnerable, right?
So David, I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you advertise that you're putting artwork in the coffee shop,
Yes.
so do you have to have that liability? It seems like you always have something included about liability.
Yeah, so
about that to exhibit in that coffee shop.
Yeah, so we recommend that you have insurance, but it's really about your art.
Okay.
It's not about somebody tripping and falling. or
Not
something.
about the picture falling on somebody
No.
on a table or something like that.
No, that would be covered by the
Okay.
coffee shop.
Okay.
That'd be under their policy.
Right.
Right.
And we don't want our group to be liable for anything.
No,
Right.
right. Yeah. So if you have something at Sweetwater's Coffee and somebody knocks it over and destroys it, it's on you, right? If you didn't insure it with the piece itself, then that's just too bad, right?
You just lost the piece.
Yeah, you just lost your piece, yeah.
But there's no liability to the person.
Yeah.
That would be on the coffee shop, right?
What's that?
The liability would be on the coffee shop.
Right, because it's their premises.
Right.
Yes. All right, taxes, pass-through taxation. So it's, in other words, as a sole proprietorship, you don't really have a separate tax return. Your business income is taxed as your personal income. Okay? Setup, it's easiest and cheapest to set up. There's no formal registration needed in most states. In Texas and Collin County, you can just go to I forget what it's called. It's in here somewhere. But you just go and, actually you can do it online now. Last time I did it, I had to go in person. But now you can just do it online. You can just register for a DBA. So I think it's like $25
Does
for a
that be
fee.
the tax assessor or?
No, that's sales tax. It's a county clerk.
It's in the same building.
Yeah, it's the same building.
Okay.
I think it's the county clerk.
Yeah.
County
Okay.
clerk's office, yeah. Especially for solo artists, freelancers, and small operations just getting started. Partnership, this is 2 or more individuals. This probably
Can I
doesn't
ask
or
about
wouldn't
the
apply to any of you.
Previous one, once you register, is it expected that you start like reporting taxes? Let's say I registered, but I have nothing to report.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Can I just you're not paying taxes by getting a DBA. That's a different thing he's gonna talk about.
Yeah, getting a DBA in and of itself does not create any tax liability.
Okay.
Okay, that makes sense?
So there is no expectation.
Correct.
No.
From them.
Okay.
No, it's not like the IRS is, oh, she got a DBA, we're expecting to see some income from a business now.
That's what I realized.
Yeah, no, no.
I'm
And
not
same
showing
thing with
up
the
at
sales
my door.
tax. I mean, just because you get a DBA and then a sales tax number doesn't mean that they're expecting for you to pay sales tax every month or quarter, okay? If you don't have any sales, you just say, I got 0 sales. I mean, you do have to report, but you don't have, it's not like you have to pay. Unless you file late.
Not a good idea.
And then it's $50 no matter what.
Really?
Yeah. You know how I know that?
I don't
Yeah. Yeah, you guessed it. Yeah. Yeah. If you miss it by a day, they charge you $50, even if you don't owe any tax, just for being late. Yeah. So they're a lot of IRS. You know, they like their fees. All right. Liability. All the partners are liable. Taxes is pass through, so the partnership makes money. The profit goes to the partners, and the partners pay taxes. Right? The partnership itself does not pay taxes. It does require a written agreement between the partners, how we're going to operate, so there's some legal work involved in that. And it's really best for 2 people. If you're doing a common thing together, most artists are solo guys, right? So I don't really see that happening, but anyway, there it is. Limited liability company. So this is kind of the next step. So let's say that you're doing the sole proprietor thing and you're making some money, like not just $100 here and there. You're making maybe a couple of $1,000s a month or more. That's when you kind of want to start thinking about doing an LLC because it starts to make more sense. Okay, it can be owned by 1 or more people. They're called members. They're not called owners. They're called members. It's a little weird. But you can have a single member LLC, or you can have multiple people involved in the LLC, kind of like a partnership. Right? There is limited liability. So it's the whole point of doing an LLC is to shield your personal assets from any kind of liability. Now, again, I'm not a lawyer, but I've heard there's some nuance there that if you're a single member LLC, you may still have some vulnerabilities to that, but it's better than being a sole proprietor every day of the week. Okay? Because technically there's supposed to be that separation between you and the LLC, you and the business. It is passed through by default. In other words, just like the partnership, the LLC makes money, the profit goes to the member, and the member reports it on their tax return. That's how I do it. But you can elect to be a corporation. You can be an S Corp or a C Corp. In other words, you're not actually one of those things, but you get treated like it. In other words, the LLC will file its own tax return separate from you, okay? And you just report the income. You'll get a K-1 statement. So it gets a little more complicated. You do need articles of organization, and you have to file those with the state. So there's got to be some kind of lawyer involved. There's services like LegalZoom and things like that where you can do it online for like $850 plus filing fees. If you hire a lawyer, it'll be about $1,500. But probably worth it because the LegalZoom says they, take all things into consideration where you live and everything, but not so sure. The first one I did through them, and I'm not real sure that it's all as it should be, but thankfully it hadn't been a problem. But yeah, there is some expense involved in setting one up. But again, you do it for the liability protection.
I would think, David, there's 2 reasons to look at that. One would be that your business has now grown
Yes,
to a point where there's some concern there about, no, I want to have that veil
yes,
between my personal stuff and the business. And the other thing would be, whatever business you're in, how much inherent risk is there,
yes.
in that business?
Yeah.
For what I'm doing, I mean,
Very little risk.
very, very little
Yeah.
risk, very, very little risk. But if I was a restaurant or a caterer,
Yeah, whole different ballgame, right?
huge
Yeah.
risk, right?
Yeah, for
Or a
sure.
bartender, that would be worse.
Yeah, yeah,
So I think you have to kind of evaluate all of that,
absolutely,
on what your risk is.
yeah. And if you start making a lot of money, there are some advantages to being an S Corp or a C Corp, but it's a much bigger hassle. There's reporting requirements and things like that, so.
Separate tax returns.
Yeah, it's like, it gets real involved.
But you
right?
can start small, right?
Yeah,
It's just
Yeah.
your own little self
Yeah.
and change if you need to.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can evolve as a business. You can start as a sole proprietor, then become an LLC, which is what I did, then become an S Corp or a C Corp, as you evolve. There's absolutely do that. It's best for small to mid-sized businesses wanting the legal protection and flexible taxation. Again, as an LLC, there's different ways that you can do the taxation aspect of it that can be beneficial to you. Corporation, you have to have shareholders. You can be the shareholder, right? So an individual can be a corporation and just own all the shares, or you can sell shares, whatever. But it's really just the way it's structured. It does create that shield between your personal assets and the business assets. Now, as a C Corp, there's double taxation. In other words, the corporation pays taxes and the individual pays taxes. An S Corp is kind of like a partnership and it's pass-through taxation. In other words, all the proceeds go to the shareholders, and then the shareholders pay taxes on what they receive. It is very complex. You definitely need a lawyer to set one of these things up. And you're going to need a CPA and an accountant. So there's a lot to it. But, there's a time and place for it. As we know, there's a lot of corporations, right? All right. So here's a lovely chart that kind of puts it all in a nutshell. The sole proprietorship, there's no liability protection, taxation is passed through. Very easy to set up, and it's an individual thing. Everything else can have one or more people involved in the business. Again, partnership, then the LLC. But typically in our businesses, you're either a partnership, either a sole proprietor or an LLC. So, registering your business. How do we do that? Well, let's find out. So the first step is in becoming a state recognized entity is to do something, right? You gotta decide on a name, whether you want to be your name plus something or just your name. You could be just your name, or some other kind of name, right? Like something you made up, like Paper Crafted Bliss, right?
Right.
Or it can be a combination, like my LLC is the Chalker Collection, right? But I also have a DBA that's Chalker Photography, right? So you can kind of do it however you want to do it, okay? Of course, Penny told me that it's not necessary to have a DBA or a business entity to get a sales tax certificate. Didn't know that. Thank you, Penny. I'll have to correct that. But it is helpful. I mean, they do ask for it, I believe, when you...
Well, they ask you for like a NCS or NI.
Yeah, NCS code?
Yeah, they ask you for that, but you can put down just your name.
Okay. But you have to have an NCIS code, right?
Yes.
So if you don't know, an NCIS code, it describes what kind of business you are. And there's like hundreds of different ones, right? So you have to go through the list and figure out which one is most suited to you. Okay. It is required for many art fairs, galleries, and B2B transactions. So if you're going to be in art fairs, most of them now require that you have at least a sales tax permit, because they don't want to be liable. They don't want the state of Texas showing up and saying, hey, I heard these people were at your art fair, they didn't pay sales tax and blah, blah, blah. So it is becoming more common. Galleries, I think typically want you to have some kind of business entity or business identity. And of course, if you're doing business with another business, it's helpful there too. Like I did some work for the city of Garland last year, and it was all a big deal for them. I had a little, I'll just say real quick, it's had a little issue. So since I'm taxed as a partnership, they consider that a disregarded entity, that the IRS does. The IRS calls that a disregarded entity. And what that means is they don't care about the name of the business, only the number. So even though I'll file a tax return that says my LLC is called the Chalker Collection, the IRS still says it's called Orion Aerial Imaging because that was the original LLC. Now I filed with the state of Texas to officially change the name. So the state of Texas knows that it's the Chalker Collection now, right? But the IRS does not recognize that. Because they don't just automatically change it for you. So when the city of Garland looks up my tax number, they're like, these names don't match. This is a problem. We can't do this like this, right? But luckily, my bank account still had Orion Aerial Imaging as one of the names, listed names. And so I just did everything under Orion Aerial Imaging and it all worked, right? And then I still have a sales tax certificate that says Orion Aerial Imaging. So it worked out, but this stuff can be a big deal if you're working with companies, city entities, things like that, okay? Individuals are fair, it's not such a big deal. But if you get into bigger things, it can become an issue if it's not all squared away.
So then in this case, your advice would be maybe drop that and get another taxpayer number?
Yeah, I could have done that. At the time, I thought it was simpler to just change the name, and I learned that it's not, right? I mean, so supposedly, I can write a letter to the IRS and explain this to them, and they will maybe change it, but
too much work.
I haven't done that. But yeah, it probably would have been easier just to create a new LLC instead of changing the name. So, it's required if you're going to operate under an assumed name. So if you're going to be paper-crafted list, you have to register that with the county at least. Okay. And it's a simple process for a sole proprietorship. Like you just fill out the form. It's like $25, and away you go. It's really simple. You do have to check to make sure nobody else has that name before you. Right? And if
How
even
do you check that?
huh?
How do you check that?
You can check online now. Used to you would check online, then you had to go into the office and look through the more recent records. But now I think you can do it all online.
But where do you check?
Online. I'll show you.
Oh,
Yeah. So they've become more and more automated as the years have gone by. Okay, so to apply for a assumed name, you go to collincountytexas.gov. And I'm going to actually click on that and show you. Maybe. So this is the Collin County website. Assumed names. That's what they call DBAs, business names. It's all called assumed names. And if you scroll down, it's got all these, explanations and how to do it, why you might want to do it or not do it. And then they have assumed name search, right? So you just click there, type in the name you want, and see if there's a match. Now, if it's really close to something else, they might flag it. Like, Chalker Photography, but spelled with a U or something, that might be a conflict, right? They don't want two businesses with almost identical names. So you have to kind of watch out for that. And then they also have an online application. So you just click there, fill out the form, pay your $25, and away you go. Right? So it's really simple now. Apparently you can search by mail if you really want to spend some time getting it done. Don't recommend. If you're moving your business out of the county, you need to let them know. So it is specific county by county. So there could be another paper-crafted list in Bexar County. There could be, right? Because these DBAs are just county specific. So if you're moving counties, like if you're moving your business from Dallas County to Rockwall or Collin County or whatever, you want to let them know so that the records can be straight. Right? And the fees. Yeah, it's $18.50 to file an assumed name certificate for an unincorporated business, and $19.50 for a corporation. So pretty cheap. So that's pretty straightforward. All right. Partnerships, LLCs, and corporations require legal documents. We talked about that a little bit already. And you have to file those with the Secretary of State. And they send you an official letter giving you a file number and a state sales, not a sales tax number, but a state registration number, and these official documents that people like CPAs will want to see, but pretty much nobody else. Sole proprietors do not need a federal EIN number unless they have employees or meet other qualifying criteria, right? So both my LLCs have an EIN number, but when I was a sole proprietor, I just used my Social Security number, which is totally fine. But if you're going to have employees, you have to have an EIN, and there's some other requirements. And they're all listed on the IRS website. And it's actually got a questionnaire. So if you answer yes to any of these questions, then you have to have an EIN, right? And the main one is employees. A lot of these don't really matter. Do you operate your business as a corporation or a partnership? Yes. Okay. Do you file employment, excise, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms taxes? Do you withhold taxes on income? Do you have a KEO plan? So there's all kinds of requirements. And answering yes to any one of those will put you in the bucket of having to have an EIN number. All right. Ooh, the fun part, sales tax. My favorite thing. All right. I call the Texas sales tax the catch-22. Everybody familiar with the movie Catch-22? It's like you can't win for losing and you can't lose for winning. It's like no matter what you do, you're wrong. Well, that's kind of what Texas sales tax is like, because it's technically illegal to sell taxable products without collecting sales tax. So let's say you're just Penny, and Penny makes some art. She sells it to her neighbor. Technically, she's breaking the law because she's not collecting sales tax, and she doesn't have a sales tax number, right? But it's also illegal to collect the sales tax if you don't have a sales tax permit. So you try to do the right thing by collecting the sales tax, but you're still breaking the law because you don't have a permit to do it, right? So that's the sales tax catch-22. Does that make sense to everybody? I found it confusing for a long time, but that's kind of the deal. It's like if you're gonna, basically the idea is that if you're gonna sell stuff, get a tax number, collect the tax, and just move on with life, unless you know for a fact that what you're doing is not taxable, right? It's not, because there are some things that you do not charge sales tax for, but probably none of us. Okay, I'm not sure what they are, but there are a few things. So just get a sales tax number and be done with it. Used to, you would have to like fill out these really confusing forms. Now it's all online, so it's really easy now. But if you're going to publicly market your business either online or in person at events, you should collect sales tax, absolutely. And like we already talked about, a lot of the people who organize those things require you to have one. I don't know if they actually check them or not, but they actually, it's in part of the application.
Some do.
They do?
Yeah, well, they ask for the number. So.
Yeah, they ask for the number, for sure. Absolutely. Many art markets and crafts fairs require you to have a sales permit. In other words, it's part of the application process. And if a third party like a gallery is handling the transaction, then they probably will collect and pay the sales tax and just give you your commission. So, you know, there are instances where you might not need a sales tax number, right? Or even a business entity, even though I think most galleries would want you to have some kind of formal business organization. But you could go to a gallery or somebody like that or even a restaurant, like at the Prosper Wine House, if we sold a piece of art there, the Prosper Wine House would do the transaction, pay the sales tax, and just give us the commission, right? So that's an exception where you don't really need a sales tax number. Some online sales sites like Etsy pay the sales tax on your behalf, but you still need to have a sales tax permit.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because it took me a while to figure that out. Because I was looking at, what I would get and all that, trying to figure out the expenses and all that.
Yeah.
And it turns out they file your sales tax, which is good because, people from all over could buy your stuff, right?
Yeah.
And, you just have to worry about Texas sales tax. They want you to have a sales tax permit because you're in Texas. But, if somebody from Oregon buys something, they take care of it. They charge them the right amount of sales tax and pay the state of Oregon, all that business. So it's a good thing. I don't know about others. I just know about Etsy because I'm familiar with that. When doing in-person sales, you will need to track the city and county where the sale was made. So if I'm doing an art fair in Allen, I need to pay, and I make money and collect sales tax. I need to pay the city of Allen their cut. And if I'm in a different county, I need to pay that county their cut, right? Because there's state, county, and city taxes. But it's easy now. I mean, used to it was crazy, but now it's just, you just look it up. You just search, Collin County. You do have to separate it out though. I mean, you have to have some kind of record that says, okay, this is the amount of sales tax I made at that, charged at that event, and then break it down. But it's really pretty easy to do if you have the record. Now, I use Square for my payment system, and it separates all that for me, right? So it doesn't necessarily tell me where I was, but I can go back and look at the date and go, okay, well, I was at the Allen Art Fair that day, so that all that tax goes to Allen, right? So again, back to record keeping. Business that do not have a high monthly sales volume can pay tax quarterly. I've paid quarterly for forever. The hard part is just remembering to do it on time. But it's easier. You just make sure you don't spend that money, right? You've got to save it so you can have it to pay them. The quarterly payment can be made online. You see, you had to mail the check. Now you can just go online and they'll just draft it right out of your bank account. It's easy peasy.
Right, and to bring it back to, if you have a 0 sales quarter, you
Yeah.
still need to file.
Oh yeah,
You still need to file a return. to tell
absolutely.
0 sales.
You just put 000, right? And if you had sales that weren't taxable, you can just put that in, right? Like let's say, I can't think of a good example right now, but let's say that you did some work for a nonprofit, right, who's tax exempt, so you don't charge them sales tax. They still want to know about that transaction, but you put it in the non-taxable bucket, right? So again, it's all about reporting and transparency.
And then they should be providing you with their tax exempt certificate.
Right,
As
yeah,
the nonprofit, so you have a record of why you didn't collect sales
yeah,
tax.
that's ideal, yeah.
In a perfect world.
In a perfect world, but I mean, they're not going to check. You can apply for a sales tax permit here at the comptroller.texas.gov. It can take 2 to 3 weeks to receive your permit. If you want to see the website, yeah,
No, it's okay.
it's pretty basic. But
One of the things, David, that I do is I keep a copy of my sales tax certificate in my car,
mhm.
along with some business cards and some brochures. I just keep it in my car because I found sometimes if I was buying something for my business, like for a supply, raw materials, then that's really tax exempt to me,
Yeah.
but I have to give them a number.
Yes,
So I keep that in my car.
and oftentimes they'll actually want to see their certificate.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of the benefits of having a sales tax certificate. If you're buying materials to create the product to sell at a profit, you can buy those materials tax-free,
Tax-free.
right? But you have to have a sales tax permit and you have to show it to them.
Right, because the whole intent is you're gonna sell it to somebody else and charge sales tax.
Yes, exactly. So they're not double taxing. Because that's what it would be, right? Because you buy it for $5, you sell it for $40, and if you're paying tax on both those amounts, they're double taxing. Right? So that's the idea. But I will say that I've never been to an event or anything where anybody asked me to see my sales tax permit. always have it with me, but I've yet to have somebody ask me for it. The only time I get asked for it is I'm trying to buy something tax exempt. Yeah. Oh, and there's only certain things, right? I mean, it's got to be
Right.
material that's germane to your business.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Oh, and it has to be something you're going to resell.
Right.
Like you can't get a printer for that. You have to pay
Printer
tax.
cartridges is a no. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to pay tax on that.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you're buying, you know, watercolor paper to paint on, that's okay. Yeah, all right, here we go. Accounting, oh my God, my favorite part. Okay,
So,
all right.
Can I ask the question? So the bottom line, like, if I go out to participate in most of the large craft and art fairs, I don't have to be registered as LLC. I don't have to have EIN or whatever that
No.
number. I can use my own social security, but I have to have the sale tax permit.
Yes,
Okay, got
Yes.
it.
you got it. All right. Accounting, you will need to have a way to track and organize your income and expenses. However you do it isn't all that important, just as long as you do it. Payment systems like Square, PayPal, Stripe, and Clover can help you track income and sales tax. They will not help you track expenses, but they will break down the sales tax and all that for you. It's highly recommended, and I think I said this before, highly recommended that you get a separate bank account for your business expenses and income to make it so much simpler for you to keep track of everything. Software, in fact, if you intermingle your personal and business and you're acting as a business, the IRS will frown upon that significantly if you get audited. They'll be like, what are you talking about? You're not a business. You don't have a separate account. So, important. Software tools like Quicken and QuickBooks can be very helpful, but they cost money and they can be very difficult to learn. I bought QuickBooks and I'm still struggling to figure out how the heck to use it. I'm going to show you what I do, or have been doing in a little bit.
I use Quicken.
Yeah.
And in Quicken, you can, there's a little column that you can flag an expense, which I do. I mean, I have separate accounting for my business too, but if it's a personal account, like Jim went to buy mulch for the front lawn, which is part of my home expenses, you know, customer, you know, appearance, all that junk. So then I would just tag it NDC, which is my company. You know, even though it's in there, I can get reports at the end of the year. But I totally understand your point. If you're not an accountant, you know, the stuff goes into, and you don't know where it went.
Yeah, it's too easy to lose track of
But
stuff.
I understand it, but I can see where it would be a struggle.
Yeah, yeah. I've lived the struggle, so
Yeah.
I'll learn.
Yeah.
The simplest way to keep is to keep a ledger book or some kind of spreadsheet, you know, an Excel spreadsheet, or the old-fashioned way and just write it down in a ledger. You know, that works. Track your mileage and deduct business miles. So I use an app called Mile IQ. It's a Microsoft product, and it tracks my everywhere I drive. Right? It doesn't necessarily tell me the name of the place, but it has a map and pins and stop and start, and I use that to track my miles. There's a couple of different ways to do mileage. I do the simple way, which is just 62 cents per mile. That's it. I don't
Whatever
worry.
the IRS allows you, I think it's higher than that now.
Maybe. Last time I thought it was 62, but it may.
No,
It changes every year.
It's
Yeah,
up.
which is good. Yeah. But that's how I do it. You need a beginning and ending mileage, which it will do that for you as well. I mean, it's spying on you all the time, but you don't have to worry about writing anything down. It just does it. So.
Will it spit out a report for you at the end of the year?
Uh-huh. They're monthly.
Do you have to add in your tolls or anything like that?
I haven't. I don't really go to that depth of adding tolls. Maybe I should, but I don't.
Mileage
could.
would be, well, depending on what you do, but mileage would be a huge write-off.
Oh yeah, I
It
mean.
really adds up fast.
Yeah, like I think this last year, I split it 80-20 between my real estate business and my photography business, and I think total I was able to write off almost $3,500
Right,
just in mileage.
right.
Oh, it's worth doing,
Right.
absolutely. Okay. You'll need to categorize your expenses. This is another part I don't like because I don't really understand it sometimes. But these are some just general, categories that you might or might not use. You may have some different categories. I don't know. But materials is the stuff you buy to create the product, right? Marketing is anything you do to market or advertise your products and services. Office supplies, ink cartridges and things like that. Your home office studio, that can get a little complicated on how that's done, but it can be done, right? So the big thing is that space you're calling your home office, is it used for anything else? Okay. If it's 98% used just for your business, then you can do that. You can run it off. And there's a couple of different ways. Again, I'm not an accountant. You can do square foot, blah, blah, blah. And when you do that, you can write off a portion of your mortgage interest and utilities, and anything that goes to maintaining that space can become a write-off. Okay. But there's some real serious rules about all that.
Right, the trickiest one about the home office, I think, is if you use depreciation, if you're depreciating that, I think that's the trickiest, and there's two options you can do. I'm not going to get into it because it's too technical, but there's two options that you can use. And then the thing to remember is if you depreciate that, if you stop your business later or sell your home later, you may have to recapture some of that. Like, 12 years ago you got a benefit because you took depreciation. Yeah. Well, now we're going to come back and take it back.
Yeah.
But who cares?
Yeah.
But that's a good write-off too. If you can base that, I think Penny, you certainly have a separate space. Be totally separate of what you do up there. I have a separate space. I have a sewing studio.
I've got an office. So.
Yeah.
And again, I've got two businesses, so I just split it between the two businesses.
Right.
Travel, if you travel, meals and entertainment, there's rules about that too. Again, mileage or auto expense, there's two ways to do that. You can do straight miles, or you can do like what it costs you for maintenance and all that stuff.
Straight mileage is the better.
Yeah, mileage is easier. Yeah. And then equipment, if you have to buy equipment for your business, that's another.
Or repair your equipment.
Huh?
Or repair your equipment.
Or repair your equipment, yeah, absolutely. So this is the spreadsheet I use.
Oh, I'm so proud of you. Look at you.
Well, my previous accountant gave me this, and then I, worked it. And it's got all the categories across the top. And then over here on the side, it's got each month, okay? And down here, I've got total deposits, total expenses, net cash income, my mileage, business miles, et cetera, beginning and ending bank balances. These are all made up numbers. In fact, a lot of them are zeros because, that's private, personal information.
Right.
But let me show you a live example of this. So this is a little complicated, okay? So if you've never used Excel, this might be a little much. But this first page is populated by different tabs, okay? So down here at the bottom, I've got a tab for materials and travel and meals and blah, 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 right? And so I'm going to click on software, and you can see I've got the date of the expense. Normally here, where it says software, I'd have like Adobe or, Canva or whoever the software provider was. And then I've got another label for item, if there's a particular item that I want to put in there, and then the amount. And so all these add up to the total down here. And if I click on, let's go back to the main one. So I click on software, and there's an equation here, okay? And it's the sum of software is the tab, and then D2 through D6. So cells D through to D6, it adds those and puts those into the particular slot for that month. So D2 through D6 is the range for that month, okay? And then it displays it here. So it pulls it, it adds it, and puts it here. So it all kind of comes together. So these formulas are very simple, but yeah, you kind of got to get your head around it. And sometimes I still screw them up, but you got to check them to make sure they're working right. But it's pretty cool. Again, this is all manual entry, which is annoying and time consuming. But if you do it every week or month, it's not too bad. And
Anything's better than the end of the year, right?
yeah, and I've done that before. I'll confess, and it's horrible.
Oh, it's horrible.
It's horrible. Going through all those bank records and stuff.
Oh, my gosh, credit card
Yeah.
statements.
So the more you stay on top of it, the better your life is. But it's a pretty cool tool, and I can make this available to you if you want it. I know some people have asked for the presentation. I can send this
Yeah,
to.
but I don't need that.
You don't need that. All right. Well, I have this kind of genericized version of it if anybody wants it. All right. But the point is you need to just keep records. That's the whole point. But I just give that to my accountant and they figure the rest of it out. All right, selling your art. There are many ways to sell your art. And they'll vary in terms of time, effort, and expense. So when you start looking at these things, you have to kind of figure out how much time I want to spend on it, how much money do I want to invest in it, and how much effort am I willing to put into it. Okay. Marketing, your work plays an important role, regardless of where you sell it, whether it's a gallery or club shows or art fairs or wherever. I mean, your biggest problem as an artist is nobody knows who you are, right? And that's with any business. Your number one liability is nobody knows you exist. So anything you can do to let people know that you exist and what you do, the better off you're going to be. The primary venues for selling art are in person and online. There's the two big buckets. Either you're at an art fair or a gallery or some physical space with your art. Or you're trying to do it online through social media or a website or some third-party site. In person includes art markets, shops, restaurants, art club shows, and established art galleries. Art fair opportunities can be found through SVG Hospitality. They've kind of taken over the art fair space in our area, and nationally too, I guess. But that's a great resource if you want to find an art fair or a market to go to. And they're usually pretty inexpensive. It's kind of lower end stuff. Zapplication.org, they have national stuff. The Other Art Fair, which is a pricey thing. They have them in Dallas, LA, Chicago, Miami, and maybe New York, I don't remember. But it's not cheap. It's a pretty high bar for entry. Then you have callforentry.org. artcall.org, and there's many more. I mean, there's just a whole slew of them. And as far as I know, all of them are pretty good. But all these places give you information about how to apply, where they are, what the requirements are, so you can decide whether you want to pursue it or not. And the price is all over the place. From like the Salina Friday Night Market is $25. The Other Art Fair, I think it's like the cheapest entry point is like $1,300.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So you see this range is broad. And a lot of things, if you're going to do in-person stuff, you have to have something to show, right? If you only have 2 paintings, it's probably not going to be great for you, right? So you need enough volume of work to show in order to make it worth your while, hoping somebody will buy it. Online includes art websites, your own website, and social media sites. Some popular art websites include Fine Art America. I was on there for a while. Etsy, of course. Art Storefronts is where my website is now. Squarespace, Artsy, ArtSpace, there's hundreds of them. And I can't tell you which one is the best. I wish I could. If I knew, I would be on it and I would be preaching it to the world, but I don't. Like I said, I've done Fine Art America and it was okay. I know some people that do Fine Art America and they like it. I switched to Art Storefronts because they have a marketing component to it, like a marketing plan, which I felt like I needed, but it's more expensive, okay? I mean, like Fine Art America, you can get on there for almost nothing. I mean, you got to do the work to get your art posted and everything, but they've got different tiers that you can buy into. But they're all those are easier than creating your own website, right? Which you can do. I mean, you can get a website builder and you can build your own website. But I don't recommend it unless you really like technical stuff, because you'll get in the weeds so fast it'll make your head spin. Because I'm somewhat technical, and I've built websites, and I don't do it anymore because it's just too hard. It's too much. And these people, I mean, if it's reasonable, they give you all this stuff, all this functionality for very little money, for the most part. But some of them are more expensive. Again, the hard part is being found, right? Like, I don't know how many Etsy shops there are, but there's got to be millions. I mean, seriously. And when I was on Fine Art America, I had a few sales over the years, but very random. And when I got on Etsy, I found that, I mean, I wouldn't even get any hits, any visitors, but I started using their marketing. So I usually started paying them to market my stuff, and I started getting sales. And that's kind of the key. Again, it's being visible. And if you're not advertising, you're competing with all the people that are advertising. And Etsy doesn't care. None of them care whether people see your stuff or not. As long as they're getting paid, you'd think they'd have a little more vested interest in it. Well, if we help them sell more, then we'll make more money. But I don't think they look at it that way. I think they're more interested in advertising and just promoting the bigger shops that have proven sales and viability. So it's a jungle out there, and you got to figure out some way to put yourself above the crowd. A lot of people do social media. I'm kind of here and there in social media. If you like doing videos, that's the best thing now to put on social media. Is any kind of video is going to get more traction than just a screenshot or a picture of your art. I mean, all that's fine, but the videos are what everybody wants to look at now. With the scrolling. And, TikTok is all video, right? And I hear people make money doing that stuff. I mean, it's real. It happens. I haven't figured it out yet. If I did, I'd be selling that. We'd be having a webinar here, and and you'd be paying to hear me talk about how you can do it too. But I haven't figured it out yet. I mean, like I said, I get some sales on Etsy. I get some sales through my website occasionally. My big downfall is I don't really promote my website enough. If I did, it would probably be better. I told you I bought into art storefronts because of the marketing plan. Well, you have to follow the marketing plan in order for it to work. And, if you don't follow the marketing plan, then, right? So, yeah. There's just so many hours in the day, right? So again, it all kind of goes back to how serious you want to be about your art and your art business, and how much time, effort, and money you want to put into it. Okay. But it can work. I mean, you can make money selling your art. It's just not easy, right? And that's the fact of it. But I don't know about you, but I do this because I can't not do it. Like real estate's a lot more lucrative than art, but I started trying to sell it and got involved in VAP and VAGF and all that because I just love doing it. I can't stop doing it, so I figure I might as well try to make some money out of it, and share it with people. So I don't know about you, but that's really my motivation, is to just share the wealth.
How do you go about pricing your artwork?
Yeah, that's always a good question. Some people have this by square inch method, like X dollars per square inch. I don't really follow that. I tend to do, so I do photography mainly, so I've got to create a print, right? I've got to pay somebody to make a print, whether it's metal or paper or whatever. And I usually do a markup on that. And, you know, you don't have to do it that way, but I do like between 2.5 and 3%. Yeah, no, 2.5 and 3 times. Like if it's $100, I multiply that by 2.5, and that's my retail. Okay. For the lower end stuff, it's more like 3 times. But when it gets more expensive, I tend to lower the markup a little bit. But that's just me. I mean, you know, there are people selling the same material, like a 20 by 24 metal print. I may be selling it for, you know, $300. Somebody else may be selling it for $1,500, right? So it kind of gets into the perceived value of the art. But it's really up to you to price your art. Okay, it's worth what you say it's worth. I mean, that's the bottom line. And, you know, I kind of believe that the cheaper you make it, you know, you may sell more, but, you know, it's just becomes more about the price. They bought it because it's cheap. You know, and, you know, why do that to yourself? I mean, if you're serious about making money at it, you know, you're really kind of shooting yourself in the foot, I think. And some people are of the mind that the more you charge, the more the perceived value, the more, you may not have as many sales, but you're going to make so much more money on the sales that you do get, that it compensates for the lack of volume. So, you know, it's up to you. It really is. There's no rules. There's absolutely no rules. If anybody tells you there's some rule about it, there's not. There's just different ways people do it. I know a lot of painters that do the square inch thing. But like Steve Gilbert, I mean, his pencil stuff, I mean, he spends 6 months doing one of those things and, you know, hundreds of hours. I mean, how do you even value that, right? I mean, it may be a big piece, but, you know, if anything less than $4,000 or $5,000 is probably, you know, disrespectful.
Yeah.
I mean,
His
based on
time's
his
worth
time.
more than that.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, it's really up to you how you price your art. If you want it to be inexpensive, great. If you want to charge a lot, great. You know, it's just, and you know, one of the things I found, I did the Salina Friday Night Market for years. One of the things I liked about it, I got a lot of feedback from people. It helped me figure out my pricing. It helped me figure out, you know, what is marketable and what's not so marketable. Because there's stuff I think is really cool that nobody even takes a second look at. Okay, I found that a lot. But I also learned that, you know, people come into the Salina Friday Night Market aren't there to buy art. Okay, they're not. I mean, I would sell stuff, but they're there for the music and the food and the beer or whatever, right? And so you have to take that into account too, is who's your audience. In fact, a lot of people, when you start talking about marketing, the first thing you want to know, who's your audience? You know, who is your ideal customer, right? And you work at it from that angle. And so, there you have it. Any other questions? Oh, wow. Right on time.
I'm going to do when I say that I just got a text from my husband that said that off of Independence and El Dorado, we're getting light hail over there.
Oh, really?
Now.
Okay.
So I don't know where y'all were going, but.
I'm going over.
Good to know. I'm not happy to hear that, but it's good to know.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you all so much. I appreciate your time and
Thank
attention.
you.
You've been a lovely audience.